I think it's always been said that the path is a razor's edge, that you can fall too far to one side or the other. And the trick is to know what you're getting into so that you make your choices with open eyes. I have contacted, these states of being which are like siren songs. You just say, my God, this is so impelling that I want to always be like this. I don't, and some of them are titanic. Like, for instance, one of the odd things in the Amazon, when you take mushrooms, that at first I thought was delightful, and then I actually came to see it as actually a weird kind of danger, so that it always made me a little uncomfortable, is you're sitting stoned on mushrooms, and this idea gets hold about how you had previously misperceived the jungle, and actually the jungle is the natural home of man, and the jungle is the mother, and you begin to get a picture in your head of a way you could be that would fulfill you but not be human. It would be life in the canopies. It would be the life of a psychedelic super ape. If the evolutionary thing had turned another way and we had developed philosophy the way we developed science, then we would move in troops through the trees in contemplation of the absolute, outside of history. History need never have happened. And you're just thinking away on this and saying, yes, this sounds pretty good, and what are the conclusions to be drawn? And they are, that you are choosing to sit here doing this. You're choosing to play botanist, ethnopharmacologist, American citizen, father, lover. You're choosing to do all this. It's okay to choose to do it, but you are choosing to do it. It is not a fate. You aren't set into it. You could just right now just get up quietly and walk toward the green and keep moving. Now, what would happen to you if you did that? Orthodoxy says night would fall, the Moscows would gather, and you would die within hours, if not days, of madness induced by insect bites, if not being chewed on by some large animal. But the state says no. It says, as you're leaving behind your humanness, you're leaving behind all these assumptions. It doesn't work like that. That the cutting edge of being is will, and it is going to be the way you will it to be. And I've never tested the limit of this thing, but I have seen briefly people do things where they willed it the way it was to be, and it bordered, on the uncanny. And this is what the feats of super balancing that are in Carlos Castaneda, tricks on waterfalls and that kind of thing. This is where you say, you know what I can do? I can do almost anything I want to do, and then proceed to go out on the razor's edge and perform these things. And they challenge, the ontological definition of humanness. The thing that we were investigating when we went to the Amazon challenges the ontological definition of humanness. What we were looking for, we had heard reports that in very off-the-river situations, in these very unacculturated tribes, that people, shaman taking ayahuasca, vomited an exotic material that was somehow, it was like a part of their body. It was a regurgitatable magical organ of some sort that they then looked into this stuff and could see. It was their means of divining. It was how they found lost objects, how they saw the future, how they performed all their magic was by means of a psychophysical fluid generated inside their own body. Well, this is either, big news or absolute madness. There's very little room to maneuver with a notion like that. But then, you get out there in the jungle and it all begins to dissolve because uh, language binds us the way atomic forces bind metallic atoms in a matrix. We all believe the same thing because there are thousands and thousands of us here, all packed closely together, all more or less believing the same thing. If you go off into isolation, you're like an electron moving out of a metallic matrix. Suddenly you're no longer bound by the rules that govern the mass phenomena of metallic atoms. Suddenly you're subject to a new set of laws, and you discover reality is very malleable and can change right in front of you. And then with the addition of psychedelics, you discover, that language is the leading edge and that it can be projected into the world. Then the trick is to learn, how to do this without becoming unbalanced, how to do it without hurting other people, and finally how to do it and actually help people. But it's a strange notion, and it's been tugging at the human experience probably since before history. Probably for the past 20 or 30,000 years, there has been, this, in the peripheral vision of the collectivity of the species, the awareness that mind is a very funny thing, and that put through the mill with psychedelic drugs, very interesting things can happen. The user of these psychedelic plants, he lives in, his world has much greater reality for him than the world of modern physics has for the people who practice modern physics, because it's an experiential world, and yet we dismiss it entirely, as a kind of a psychologism, a kind of delusion. But it's because we are so certain that language secures the ground of being.